I'm Luke,
And I'm Tyler,
and this is Mixed to Tape.
the podcast where we talk about audio, from recording to mastering and everything else in between.
We're here to start discussions and help answer your questions.
Let's get started. Good evening, Luke.
Good evening, Tyler.
How are you? How you doing?
I'm all right. It's a Friday night, and I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Just we were talking before we were recording, just life raising two children. It's just like my life is controlled chaos all the time. But I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, just normal work stuff and raising the two girls. Our youngest one just turned 1 on yesterday. It was her first birthday.
I'm so sorry I missed it. I try to write these things down so that I remember, but happy birthday.
Thank you. That's great. Yeah, she's like an old 1-year-old. Like she started walking like 10 and a half months.
Okay.
And she's like picking up on stuff and like doing gestures and yeah, she's like a real person. She's understanding things. Like I'll say, Mabel, go get the ball, and she'll like turn around and run to the ball.
Nice.
Stuff like that.
All right. So she's probably going to be kicking you out of the house in a couple months.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Yeah. Be living in the shed.
Yeah. It's like, Father, I'm sorry. I cannot pretend anymore. Here we are.
Yes, here we are. Is life good with you?
Life is good.
Good.
We're, sorry. I've been teaching high schoolers for the last week, and it's like getting back into teaching after not doing it for a while. It's like, it's really exhausting. And like you have to teach the same lesson twice because I teach two classes, but it's the same thing. And it's like having to like continually think about what you've said and make sure that you cover everything. And then, did I just say that earlier? Or like, have I already said that? Or did I say it to the previous class?
Right.
And it's just like, you're thinking two things at once for like an hour and a half.
Yeah. It's like no overlaps, no gaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's good. We just found out that Lyle Crocodile is playing at the local movie theater.
Okay.
And it's playing in a couple weeks, and that was one that I got to edit. And
fun.
so this is very exciting because it's our first time going to the movie theater together as a family, and this will be Piper's first time going to the movies, and it's sort of special because I actually got to work on this one.
Oh, fun.
I didn't get credited. That's fine.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, sometimes you do like the music editing, you might get credited, you might not. I didn't. It's still cool. I know what I worked on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've been there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
actually a project that we both worked on together.
Which one? Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, that one.
That one.
That one.
But we did make the CD for that one.
We did, yes.
So my daughter actually this morning, she was talking about going to see the movie. She said, Daddy, is your name going to be at the end? I was like, well, no, it's not. Why? And it's like, oh, how do I explain like politics and like all the history of like who gets in the credits of movies and who doesn't?
Right. Like, should this have been like a union thing? Or...
Yeah. So it's like, just because sometimes you make it and sometimes you don't, and that's about it.
Yeah. So is that what we call that a wide loop? Like with our 3-year-old, like you get stuck in a wide loop.
Oh yeah.
Like something happens, she says, "Well, why?" And then you answer that, and she says, "Well, why?" Was that a long why loop, or was it just
that one? I kept pretty contained.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's had some wild why loops. She'll get into like she gets existential sometimes. She's like, "But who raised the first baby?" I don't know.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, it's like, okay. Who made the first star? I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways.
That's fun. Movies. Yeah, we've taken our oldest to the movies. She's been twice. She went once with me and once with her Grammy.
Okay.
And I was the one that brought her to her first one, and I was just like, I don't know how she's gonna be. We might have to just like leave like 5 minutes in, and she was great. But halfway through the movie, she's like, "It's too dark in here. I want to turn the lights on." And I'm like, "Well, we can't do that. It's like we could leave, but we can't turn the lights on." And so she finally, I guess, accepted the fact that the lights weren't coming on, and we enjoyed the rest of the movie.
That's good. We got headphones locked and loaded for this one. So
Like ear protection.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. She does not like anything over like 70 dB.
Neither does Ivy. Our
Yeah. It'll be great.
Fun, awesome.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy working on that project?
I truly did. I love that stuff. I do. And, you know, the music was tight and extremely well performed, and so it was a lot of just editing the music together.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun to producers just like, from here to here, cut in, this take for these parts. It was also really interesting seeing the music side of like seeing that side of how musicals get put together. There was a lot of like alternate endings and like different variations of certain ideas. It wasn't clear to me if it was like for album type stuff versus movie type stuff, or if it was just like alternate ideas or like different cuts perhaps.
And this is all stuff that they had you cut together and
Yeah.
deliver.
And so like they handed me a score. Sometimes, you were looking for the alternate ending, which was different from the option A
Yeah,
ending, or,
right. Yeah,
and so you're like digging through different takes, and then, oh, here it is. But so then it was like, now I got to duplicate all these tracks and put them over here in a different folder. And so then I could hand them off to the engineer who had to mix it. So now he knows exactly where, everything is and what it is. And, I always find it fascinating to work on big musicals like that, and like just the sheer number of musicians that are involved and the sheer number of tracks.
yeah,
It was like 24 to 30 tracks of orchestral stuff, and then they would quadruple it, and then there was like, the pass for the brass and the pass for the woodwinds and stuff, and it's a lot. It was
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
But yes,
Awesome.
let us
Yeah,
continue.
let's do it. All right. We have just one thing today, Luke. In case you missed it, this came out maybe a couple weeks ago. Pro Tools 2024.6. There's some really cool features on here, which I was holding off on updating, but we were working on something together, and I foolishly used ARA, and you had the newer version, and there was something
Yes.
when you sent me your stuff back, I wasn't able to open it. It said that it was there, and it wasn't, so I was forced to upgrade to it, and I'm happy I did because there's some really cool features on this version. Pro Tools has had ARA with Melodyne for, I don't know, probably a year, 2 years now.
It was a year. Yes, it's been
Yeah.
a year.
They've just added Isotope RX and Auto Align to ARA, and it works pretty good. I've had trouble with Melodyne ARA in the past, so on important things, except this last thing that we worked on, I usually use the plugin version, but for like demo stuff, I'll use the Melodyne ARA. And the thing is with that is I get like an error message sometimes where it's like, we can't find your Melodyne data, like check your work and make sure that it's all there, kind of a thing. And I've had stuff that I've tuned come back untuned.
Hmm.
So now I always commit that stuff, even on
Yeah.
like demo stuff. But so the Isotope RX and the Autoline stuff works great. The Isotope, if there's a trouble spot, I'll just work on it and commit it right there. So I'm not leaving the ARA plugin open,
Hmm.
you know, at the end of the session. And then the import session data screen is super helpful now. You can open the window, make it bigger for like long track names. Everything is really sorted, like the hierarchy, like the folder. It shows folder hierarchy. It shows track color. It shows if a track is inactive, if it's hidden. Now you can filter and like do searches on the import session data window. It's pretty hip. Have you used any of that?
I was checking it out as we
Okay.
were sort of prepping for this, and it's It is very nice, right? Like all
Yeah,
that all those titles used to be contained in a very tiny little window in the middle of the session data
yep,
import like window, and now it's all been pushed to the side, and it's got its full. It takes up the full window. It's fantastic.
yeah. And then there's also the clip list. Um, you can filter different types of, I guess, clips like MIDI, audio, video, and you've always been able to search for clips. I think the command was Shift Command F, and then you could search
Hmm.
for a clip. But now it actually shows you what you're searching in on the clips menu. It's just super handy. And sometimes, like if you were looking for a clip and you have searched for a name, it wouldn't show up like in the clips list unless if you cleared it. So it could be confusing, but now it's pretty obvious if you have a search in there, and it might be like omitting other clips. So
Hmm. Especially now with sessions having like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, honestly, thousands or tens of thousands of audio tracks at this point.
so yeah, there's a few other things, but those are the three that I found the most helpful working the
Cool.
last few weeks. Yeah.
Well, I should definitely check out that isotope ARA thing, considering how much I
Yeah.
deeply love RX.
It's not like the full plugin.
Is it just spectral repair?
It's a few things for spectral repair. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of like a dumbed down version of RX.
Okay.
But like if you
So
want to
it
get
doesn't have
like,
like the mouth de-popper or de-clicker or
I
anything.
don't believe so. No.
Okay. Still got an
Yeah.
audio suite, that one.
Yes.
Okay.
Audio suite it or do it in the plugin.
Okay.
So in case you missed it, Pro Tools 2024.6.
Update your Pro Tools, and you can have fun like we do. Today, we're going to talk about tracking Broadway cast albums.
Yeah. I guess at some point, we're gonna cover a whole thing like making an album from start to finish. Songwriting, setting up a session, tracking / recording, mixing it and mastering, all that stuff. So we've already covered kind of setting up a session and making it comfortable for musicians and all that jazz. And so today, I guess we'll talk more about the tracking aspect, and I think it kind of overlaps a little bit. Setting up a session and tracking.
Hmm.
There's some things that we'll probably talk about twice, but that's all right.
Yeah. Maybe you start listening on episode 9 or 10. Who knows?
Yes, perhaps.
Both you and I have worked on Broadway cast albums for a long time now. Sort of the bread and butter of working at a major studio in New York City is you work on Broadway cast albums.
Yeah,
And yeah, at first, you presented this idea of talking about Broadway, and I was like, I don't know, it seems like a big thing to talk about for a target audience here, but I don't know, it's actually kind of fun. And from these big sessions, there's I think a lot of takeaways that you can bring to your smaller sessions as well too.
absolutely. I always said that
Um,
if you can run a Broadway session, you can do any session.
yeah,
Really.
and I think a lot of the ways that we thought at Avatar was always like, um, you know, getting into the habits of doing certain things, not because it saves you right now for the small session, but because if you're in the habit now, it will save you during the big sessions. Small ways that you can organize your sessions
Yeah.
or whatever, organize your,
Yeah, and just like make a habitual thing that you're always
yeah,
doing. Yeah.
right. And so, yeah, so let's talk about
Yeah.
Broadway.
Let's do it.
Broadway.
Um, yeah, so I think Broadway is like one of the most complicated sessions that we would do at Avatar. Traditionally it's the whole orchestra,
Hmm.
which is I don't know how many pieces, 20 something piece orchestra, depending on the project, but I think
Yeah.
they have to have a minimum amount of players. I think it's like 20 or something. I forget. But so let's just say there's 20 people in the orchestra. Are you counting?
No,
Oh, I thought you were counting.
I gave up. I'm
Oh,
here for you.
okay.
I'm listening now.
Plus the full ensemble plus the leads recording simultaneously at the same time. That's a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah,
that's a
let's.
lot of everything. That's a lot of inputs. That's a lot of
Mhm.
headphone mixes. That's a lot of things that can just go wrong.
The process was we would set up on Sunday. You might record some orchestral bits on Sunday, but the idea
Yeah, like
was
if
you
the
were,
percussion player came in and set up, you'd like just play everything and we'll get levels, take 5 minutes kind of thing.
Or, sometimes you might have the orchestra play like the overture or something like that, something
Right.
that didn't involve the vocals. So it depends, but for the most part, I think we just set up on Sunday. And then Monday was tracking day because Monday is the off day for Broadway, right? No one
Yep.
performs, so that was the ideal time to record. And since Monday is the only ideal day to record, you would record everything at
Yeah,
once.
everything. Yeah.
And it was this logistical feat every time because it was, every time somebody enters the studio, as soon as they walk into the building, they're being paid. And
Yeah.
so there was like, okay, who performs in the most songs and who performs in the least number of songs? We're going to take all the people who perform in the least number of tunes and we're going to record those first. And then we can release all those people and then we're going to
Right.
save ourselves a lot of money. So there was a lot of like jumping around between songs and things like that.
I'm happy I was not involved in that and those logistics.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was nice. Our experience of it was a piece of paper that would get taped to the wall at the
Right.
beginning of the day.
Right. Oh, so this person's in at 12 o'clock. Okay,
Yeah,
and they get dismissed at 1. Done.
yeah. Our job as assistants was primarily to set up the session, obviously, and like
We'll
assist
set
the
up the live
engineer.
room. Right. Set up the live room, setting up Pro Tool sessions a lot of the times.
Hmm.
Right.
And this was where templates really came into play, really, really quickly, right? As you would create that Broadway that session template,
Yep.
and we would basically just build from that all day because you didn't know the names of the songs and you didn't know what order they were going to record it until you showed up that morning.
Right. Right.
And for me, at least, I never wanted to like make all of the sessions at the beginning of the day because inevitably by like session like 2 or 3, something would change to your template.
Yep.
If you've already pre-built everything, then that means everything else after is now wrong.
Right. Yes, correct.
So it's much faster and easier to just do it on the fly.
Yeah. So going back to like setting up the
Yeah.
live room. So there's all these people in the room and there's one person that they need to be looking at and it's the conductor, right? So we would try our best to get sight lines of the conductor for all the players, but there was usually cases where you have someone in a side booth who just might be positioned the wrong way, and we have to set up conductor cams. Do you put like a
Hmm.
camera on the conductor and then put video monitors? I remember doing it mostly in like the drum or percussion booth because they're playing so much percussion. They're facing the left side and the right side, and they're turning around and playing stuff. So they need to be able to see the conductor. So I remember on some of those sessions there'd be like 3 or 4 monitors in
Yeah,
that booth, so
that's
this guy
right.
can, wherever he was playing, he could see the conductor for cutoffs and cues and all that stuff.
Or yeah, and then the vocal booth was you have all these ensemblers. Uh,
Ensemblizers.
yes. Um, you have the chorus there, tons and tons of people singing, and none of them can see the conductor because we got them all behind like walls or
Yeah.
gobos or something like that. So yeah, you'd have like 2 or 3 monitors in there as well. All the cameras had to be latency free. That was always a
Yes.
trick.
Yep.
So they were always
Yeah.
analog.
Yeah. Analog, like security cameras, black and white.
Yep.
So you have we usually have like I think probably about a dozen microphones up in the room with the ensemble, and you talked about before like some numbers there's a lot of ensemble, sometimes there's little ensemble, sometimes there's no ensemble, there's just some leads. But what we would do for the ensemble room is we'd print huge numbers for each microphone, right, and make it very clear. So whenever we would do a different number, the producer or someone would say, okay, you two, or you're on mic 1, you guys are on 2, and then 3. And you try and have them live on the same mic all day so you don't have to change things and their sounds remain the same. But I guess inevitably people would float around a little bit. But as far as like trying to organize things, putting those big numbers up there so it's not like, oh, which microphone is this? And then they're on the wrong mic and they don't get recorded right or at all.
Hmm.
And then in those rooms, the hardest thing was getting headphone mixes for the ensemble players. It
Yep.
was, I think, the impossible task, right? Because it
Yeah.
would be like you'd have them all in a row, and they'd be like, "Well, I can hear you, but I can't hear me." And the next person would say, "Well, I can hear you, but I can't hear me." Like, what's going on? So we'd usually on these big ensemble sessions when there's, I don't know, 20 people in the ensemble, we'd stick one of the new guys who was capable of doing headphone mixes,
Like me.
like Luke, in the booth, and you'd be in there all day long with a pair of headphones on, listening to the
Yep.
headphone mix, and then just waiting for people to have headphone mix meltdowns, right?
There is a picture of Jane Krakowski singing on the She Loves Me cast album, and in the background is a very blurry man with a big beard just lurking behind her. And I was like, I've made it.
Yeah. I
That
think I
was
worked on that
actually
one.
you did work on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were in the normal control room, the nice
Yeah.
comfy control room. That was a funny session for me because that so the producer we were working with liked to often like work through meals and things like that. We were always like it was move move move, like let's record the next thing, record the next thing. So being in the vocal booth, I rarely, if ever, had time to actually eat food. And so I had this brilliant idea that I was just going to get like a giant bowl of pretzels, and between takes, I can just munch on these things and, whatever. I had forgotten to take into account the salt content. And so by the end of the day, I was like, I could not drink enough water. I literally couldn't. I was just thirsty for the next like 12 hours.
That's amazing. I know. Watching what you eat during those long sessions was critical, and if you got it wrong, it would ruin your day.
Yeah.
Like too many sweets in the morning when they have all the danishes and bagels out, it would mess you up.
Yeah.
I'm just looking back at one of the cast albums that I engineered, The Disaster. The name of the musical is called Disaster. Cast recording.
The cast recording
was-
went great.
Yeah, it went great. But yeah, I'm just looking back at my input list and looking at the cues, and we had 3 separate headphone systems running at the same time. We had our 8-channel Nemesis headphone mixer, and I believe we probably gave that to... I think we gave that to the lead vocals, right? So they had control over the track, which was mixed from the control room. They had each lead on there, and then they had group vocals from the ensemble on the Nemesis. And then we had a 16-channel Aviom system, which that was for the orchestra and I believe the conductor. So they had everything split out. They had drums, bass, key 1, key 2, trumpet, trombone, the woodwind player, lead vocals 1 and 2, and then a stereo of the ensemble, 1 fader for talkback and 1 for click. And then we also, I guess it was for the ensemble, we had a stereo cue running, mix off the console for some group vocals.
Yeah.
And that was just to accommodate everybody so everyone can have enough control so they can give their best performance.
Let me turn the page here and see if I can answer the question.
Oh, Luke. So Luke, he has a binder or a notebook that he kept copious notes of every session that he worked on for a year, and this one notebook. And so he's going back to this session and looking to see what details he could.
This is probably, I truly think this is the best thing I ever did for myself, was that after every single session, I drew out the session, I noted what the session was and who worked on it, the date, and I would take notes. And the notes were for me. It was like mostly just like things that I had learned. And, I love doing this because it always forced me to listen a little bit and to not just sort of like passively try to get through the day. Instead, I was like actively trying to learn. And then, the things that I learned would be written down and they couldn't be forgotten. So anyways, I do not have notes in here about who got the stereo cue.
It says, and on my input list, it says program group vocal 5 and 6.
Yeah.
From aux 3 and 4. So
I bet it's something like that.
Yeah, because the Nemesis had group vocals 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And this was a pretty standard cast album, I would say, in the sense of like you had 2 vocalists isolated from the group, drums in a booth. You had the ensemble vocals like very isolated in the back booth, the big back booth, and
all of them together. And I don't remember, would we divide them up with gobos? I can't remember if we did for this session. We did not. It was just one open room, just for ensemble.
So we put gobos up. We put short gobos up between them and the drum booth. This I
Okay, you're
have
right.
noted. And we put a few tall gobos up behind them, I think just to further isolate them a little bit
Hmm.
more. But other than that, it was violins. It was all strings in the main room with the
Yep.
keys. Trumpet, bones, reeds were all there. Piano and keys was all being played on the one side. And then we had the bass amp in the cable closet and the guitar amp in that back ISO booth in
Yep.
A. So yeah, this was pretty standard. Um, Everybody had sight lines. We didn't need cameras for this. Who do they need to see? Piano
I
player?
guess who? Oh, piano player. I don't. I have to look at the layout. I don't have the layout.
I have the layout. I didn't write down a conductor, and normally I write that down, so it must have been the keyboard player or something. There's a key two player as well.
So talkback mics. We had key one, key two, drums, and guitar. So yeah, it must have been key one.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was. I'm looking at the inputs. It's like 51, 52, 52 inputs. It's a decent sized session.
Yeah. Which, let's segue from this. We mentioned the She Loves Me cast album. This is actually, I think, one of my favorite cast albums to talk about.
She loves me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because everything that I had done with Broadway up until this point, and everything I would do with Broadway after this point, was always about isolation. It was about
Yeah.
capturing everybody isolated. And She Loves Me was the first cast album I ever worked on where they opened all the ISO booth doors and recorded everything with a Decatree. They close mic'd everything too, but it was, they put up a Decatree and the idea was it would still capture the drum and the
Right.
vocals in there as well.
So did you open up? Because if you aren't familiar with Avatar rooms A, B, or C, the original three main rooms,
Hmm.
they had these sliding glass panels that would separate the main live room from different booths. So in
Right.
Studio A, there was the main room, and then there was the piano booth, if you're looking for the control room, in the back left, and then there's a rhythm room on the back right. And so what you could do is you can have all those doors closed to isolate those three rooms. And it wasn't complete isolation. I mean, there was a little leakage, but it gave you a lot of control.
Hmm.
But what Luke is saying is that they would slide. What I was going to ask you, did you slide all of the glass panels open, or did you just do some of them to?
The two back booths we isolated, so because it was the drums on one side and the chorus on the other, so we put ISO booths. We isolated them, and we put up gobos between them, so the drums weren't heavily
Yeah.
leaking into the vocals. But both, I believe, both rooms were more or less open to the main room,
Yep.
so all that leakage was getting in to there. There was no. We did have cameras because we did set up a few gobo like booth things for the main vocalists, and then we put the chorus behind them,
Hmm.
and so we had to have some cameras for them. Um, but yeah, it was basically everybody just like packed into this room, and
Yeah.
the sound was great.
Yeah. I know. And the M50s on the Decatree, it's like
Yeah,
you
it was
don't need
engineered
anything
by Lawrence
else.
Manchester, and so he
Yeah.
brought his own M50s.
Which he would rent to, other sessions for a
Yeah,
price. But yeah, I've worked on other sessions where we would control the amount of leakage from those rooms, just open up a few panels, which was a great thing because if you don't want the drums blaring into the main room with the orchestra in there, you could open up one or two panels and just get a little bit. You can control it in that way. It was really a great system. And so those doors, those sliding panels were either there when you needed them, and if you didn't need them, they'd be slid away and they'd tuck into the walls and they would just be out of the way, not even there. It's a really,
yeah,
really great system.
yeah. That was an intense day. I remember that day going into that, you and I we were working on something on the day before, and
Before She Loves Me?
yeah,
Yeah.
we were working on the Tuck Everlasting material,
Yeah.
and then we basically had to tear down Tuck Everlasting and set up for She Loves Me, and I think we were working till like 3:30 or 4 in the morning.
It was the downbeat the next day.
Yeah,
Do you remember? Yeah.
and then I remember Lawrence was like, "I'm going to show up at 7:30," so I got like 3 hours of sleep. I told myself I'm going to do the job, but I'm going to go up to the fourth floor and I'm going to take a shower before I do anything. Like I wasn't going to make it if I just couldn't shower at least.
Right.
Um, but considering that you basically have to have perfect takes from everybody when you track something like that, like out into the open, you can't tune them really in post. You
Yeah, it's
can't
very
fix anything in
challenging.
post. So you have to have everything like good. And they ended the day early. They ended the
Oh
day
wow.
like 2 or 3 hours early.
That was always a treat, especially for us who may have been working for like the prior 2 weeks straight.
Yeah.
And like you said, setting up until 3:30 in the morning, getting like 3 hours of sleep and just delirious all day, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, with it, able to do the job, but still like,
Yeah. And then, to be able to go home and eat dinner at a normal time, that was
yeah.
amazing.
Oh man, the amount of reverse commutes that I did working at that place. Oh, like
Yeah.
going home at like 7 in the morning, you know,
Yeah.
from like an all night shift. So yeah, it's funny you talk about She Loves Me and how that was open, very organic, a lot of leakage and bleed. I got to work on the Hamilton cast record, which is the complete opposite of that.
Let's get into it.
Which let's do it. So that was a really special project that I got to work on, and it was just by the grace of our studio manager that I got assigned to it. You know, I didn't know really any of the people, like the producers or I knew the engineer who worked on it. We had worked together a couple of times, but there was other assistants that worked with him. But anyway, so She Loves Me. The doors are open. There's leakage everywhere. It's a beautiful sounding record. You know, very organic. Hamilton was the complete opposite. We tracked this album like a record, essentially. We spent 2 weeks tracking the band and all the songs, where traditionally with a Broadway cast album you get one day to do the whole record, right? Maybe 2 days if you're lucky.
Yeah,
I
like
forget.
players would come in and basically track until like what, 2 in the afternoon or something,
Yeah,
right? And then you would edit with Lackamore for a few hours, and then like you had to be done by a certain time, which was kind of nice for you because
right.
Lackamore had to go and do the show.
Do the show. Yeah, right, right. But yeah, it was like doing the rhythm section stuff, and then there was like a string quartet that we did. So we did all four of them together at once, but like we isolated them. They were in the main. We did this up in C, the strings, and we isolated them. I mean, they're all in the main room, but we put gobos in between them so we can control them a little bit more. And then we also did the same thing with the ensemble vocals. They weren't recorded with the band at all. They were recorded after as an overdub. And the same kind of thing, everyone in the main room together with gobos in between them. So on the back end, if you need to tune or fix or manipulate those vocals, you had much better control.
I remember setting up that with you. It was like I think it was like 13 booths that
Yeah,
we had to
yeah.
create, which
It went
was
all the way from
13 gobos plus
yeah,
backs. We
yeah,
basically grabbed every gobo that we had in the building, and we created a line that started from the control room window in C and
yeah.
stretched all the way to the back wall.
To the Motown room, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it curved or if it just went straight, but either
It
way,
was a little bit of a curve.
yeah.
I feel like I remember setting that up like two or three times to get it right. You know
Yep.
what I mean? To get the spacings right and like enough room with the gobos.
You tracked down an A because I remember you were there for a while.
I think that was rhythm section stuff.
Okay.
I believe that was rhythm section.
Was
Like
it
the
a total
initial.
of 2 weeks of tracking?
It was something like that.
Okay.
I
I
have
remember it was
I
a
have
long time.
I have a schedule of that somewhere floating around. But it was, yeah, and it was cool because like usually like the cast albums, like we were saying, it's just like all in one day. It's a grueling, long day, a lot of inputs, a lot of stuff happening, a lot of people, you
A lot of
know,
pressure. Yeah.
a lot of pressure because it's like that clock is ticking and that's so much money,
Yeah.
so much money. Because I forget what the cast gets paid. Do you remember what the cast
I
gets paid for recording? Is it like a whole week's salary, like for the
oh,
show, or is it something I forget what it was? But
I guess
anyway,
I
it's a lot
was
of
just
money.
sort of assuming it was like overtime pay, but it's like, yeah, you have one day to get it right
Right,
with a Broadway cast album. You're not calling everybody back in to retrack.
right, right. So with
Um,
the Hamilton, you could focus on getting a drum sound. Like we got
yeah,
a drum sound on the Hamilton cast record. You don't do that on a Broadway. I mean, you get a sound, but it's like a very quick. You have to know what you're doing to get a
yeah,
good sound in like 5 minutes. You know. We probably spent like an hour or two just getting good drum sounds and trying different things, and It was a really cool experience. But with the vocals, the ensemble vocals, I feel like that's become a thing now, kind of goboing everybody up and really isolating them so you
Yeah.
can tune them on the back end because everything, a lot of things these days are just like hyper tuned, you know. It sounds good and it's like a natural tuning, but I mean, we do stuff together all the time where it's just like background ensemble vocals and you're just tuning the whole thing, you know.
Yep.
So yeah, during these recording sessions, were we talking about this before we started recording about taking detailed take notes
Oh yeah. We didn't talk
um,
about that, but I see it here in our outline.
on our outline? um, but yeah, I mean, so taking detailed take notes is while you're running the Pro Tools, a tape machine, whatever you want to call it, um, writing, you know, doing playlists for each take. You know, always start on playlist one, and then put your edit on zero, kind of a thing. But like I always try to take as detailed take notes as I could because someone would be like, "Oh, so wait, what was that take we did?" Or I said that one take was a good take. Do you remember which one that was? And you can just look back in your take notes, and there's the answer right there for you,
Hmm.
without really having to go fishing for things.
I
Um,
s- I like to my take notes were I always like to use oh I lost it. Text edit.
Text edit, yeah.
That little just make like a little text doc and then you can
Hmm.
actually drop it in the session so that it's right there.
Yep.
Um, I would try to do things like I would even note when listening sessions would happen, like when
Hmm.
the artist would leave the live room and come in and listen.
Yeah, I would write that down like playback. I put down playback as a note
Yeah,
if we'd listen to like a
because
certain take or something.
because often what happens after playback is like new ideas happen, and that's when they'll track those new ideas. And it also helps to sort of remind you, it like anchors you periodically during the day. Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. We listened back, and then I
Yep.
remember there was one take, and it was really good.
Yep.
Trying to do more than just note like, oh, good take or bad take or false start. Like, try to do things like what was special about this take
Yeah.
that made
Yeah.
it different than the previous one.
Or any comments that you may have heard in the control room from a
Hmm.
producer or an engineer or something, you know. Like so and so said this, you know.
As I assisted for Greatest Showman, as that was one of my things I got to work on, and I wasn't running Pro Tools for that one. I was the take notes guy, you know.
Hmm.
So when I wasn't like setting stuff up or moving things around to the control room or in the live room, I was in the control room and I was just writing down absolutely everything. And
Yeah.
that's how I could best serve the engineer for that project was he just
Yep.
like he wanted absolutely killer take notes.
Yeah, because then you start editing and then mixing and you have all these takes and you know, someone's like, "Well, I think this one was the take." And if you don't have it written down somewhere, you're pretty much lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't go back in time and fix that one.
Well, and then you're trying to figure out, that was a Lackamore project too. And Lackamore is, he's got a crazy, crazy ear for all things music. And so he can very easily, he can have a conversation with the drummer and be like, hey, could you like try on the hi-hat instead of doing like digga 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 da, could you go like digga digga da digga digga da?
Right.
How do I put that in the take notes? Okay. In take notes, we tried a new hi-hat idea.
Right, yeah. Right.
Let's see. What else? What else can we do?
If you're not using a click, I guess this would be more for like doing like a jazz date or something.
Hmm.
Which I always love those, like reading the chart down as they were playing. But to drop markers, because usually with those sessions, you're not doing playlists for each take. I mean, you might do that as far as like labeling your audio clips as like
Hmm.
.01, .02, but you're not like going over stuff. You're like recording linearly. I can't get that word out of my mouth tonight. Help me out, Luke.
Linearly.
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 The word of the day is linearly. Um,
I thought it was ensemblizers. Uh,
okay. Yeah, so what I would do is just like every 8 measures or like different section of the song, drop a marker with a bar number, just so when someone's like, "Hey, can you play back, the second chorus in that of take two?" Bam, you can know where it is, and then you roll back like 2 measures right into it.
yep.
Being the Pro Tools app. That was like the best thing about being a Pro Tools app is like knowing where you are all the time.
Hmm.
What else? I'm trying to think. Keeping the talent comfortable. I remember in Studio A trying to keep that room cool on a hot day was no easy task.
Or like you have to adjust the temperature in the live room, and it's like, well, you're gonna be waiting for like a half hour for you to feel
Right.
this one.
Or right. Or the ACs would freeze up because it would be like working so hard. And
Also, that one. There was maybe this is worth mentioning. There was one piece of advice that I got sort of early on when I was second assisting on a lot of projects for assistants,
Mhm.
and it was basically like as soon as the engineer leaves the room, you should be right behind them. Especially because I was like just getting started, like working on sessions, helping out, whatever. If you're not working the Pro Tools rig, the like second most helpful thing you can do is to like follow the engineer if they leave. If they leave for the live room, if they leave for the bathroom, you don't have to follow them. But but like if they leave to go fix something, like follow
You
them
felt, yeah, right.
because 9 times out of 10 they're going to walk into that room and be like, "Oh, I need this sort of adapter."
Right. Or I need
And
four hands. Like,
yeah,
you need me to do, yeah, right.
I need this sort of cable or I need this sort of mic stand. And you can like being the assistant, you can already be on your way to going and getting that thing
Right.
for them.
Right. Yeah. Or even if they didn't need a hand going out there, I think it just kind of showed that you're trying to be proactive. You're
Hmm.
willing to help out. I guess trying not to be like a creep following them out,
Good luck figuring that one out.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do as an assistant, second assistant, doesn't matter. Um, as soon as you hit your first break during the day, everybody's going off to the bathroom. Take 2 minutes, walk around the live room, and make
Yes.
sure that all the mics are right where they're supposed to be.
Yeah. No droopy mic stands.
Yeah, because that like do that immediately. The if a mic stand's going to droop, it's going to droop immediately. It's going to droop after the first.
Yeah.
By the time you've hit the first break, it's going to have drooped.
Right. Yeah.
So you really only have to do it once. But if you can do it at the beginning of the day, then you can go back and be like, hey, just so you know, this mic stand dropped, and
Yeah.
we just tracked like 2 songs. Do you want to go back and like try to capture this? Or 9 times out of 10, engineers like, ah, it's fine.
Yeah.
But now you've caught it, and now you're good for the next 16 songs.
Yeah. You're not breaking down at the end of the day. And you're like, oh, shoot. You
Yeah.
know,
So check your mics.
check your mics. Yeah. All right. Even if you could do it every break is nice. Just to walk around with these big session, there's, I don't know, 40 people in that live room moving around.
Yep.
Someone's going to bump something. But be very careful because the people in the orchestra, the musicians in the orchestra, love to keep their very expensive instruments just kind of laying around.
With their half-finished coffees laying right next to them.
Yeah. So be very careful walking around the live room. I
Yep.
remember one of the assistants knocked over a music stand and almost chopped some guy's bassoon in half. And like this guy like almost lost it.
Yeah.
'Cause it was close, you know?
I mean, that's your livelihood.
Yeah,
That thing's got to be as expensive as like a car.
probably. Let's see.
What's the Stradivarius of bassoons?
33,000.
Yeah.
I know they're very expensive.
Solid. It's a solid car.
Yeah. Like a,
It's
a nice car. And
it's a solid
maybe like
used Honda Civic with 5 figures of miles on them.
right. Yeah, or violins. I remember I would see some of them like hang their violins on the end of the music stand on the scroll part.
Come
It's
on.
like, what are you doing? Get out of here. Yeah, okay. 7,500 to 3,700. I'm sorry. 7,400 to 37,000. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that
Forty
sounds about
thousand
right.
dollars. Yeah. For a
That
bassoon,
sounds
we're
about
talking
right.
about bassoons.
Can you finance?
No, cash only.
How about
Of course you
interesting trades? I don't want a bassoon.
Yeah, that guy's
Oh, we should
whittling.
probably wrap this up.
Yeah, that guy's whittling reeds all day, making his. Anyway, so yes,
Those are some Broadway anecdotes.
yeah,
Hopefully,
I miss doing those sessions. They were a
I
lot of fun. They were so much fun. It was the good. I can't remember if we talked about this before we started.
we
It was the
did.
good. It was the good kind of stress. Like I looked
Yeah.
forward to those stressful days, especially
Yeah.
with like you get all the lines run, you check your lines, everything's working. Things would pop up. You have to figure it out on the fly. But it was just like a nonstop busy day.
Yeah, and like
except for the guy in the ensemble booth mixing headphones. That was kind of a boring job.
yeah, but like, you know, everything's working and you're just like shit hot at Pro Tools and just like all over the place, just like taking notes and keeping everything organized, and you're just like on top of it.
Yeah.
Like when you start getting in that flow,
Yeah.
it was amazing.
You get your nice fancy coffee that the producer bought you in the morning, you know.
Yeah. See, I never wanted to drink coffee because then I'd have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, that was, yeah, you break the seal, it's like game over.
No, I do miss that kind of stuff, but I suppose it's also nice to have a calmer life where I can have kids.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
All right,
So yeah,
Tyler,
I guess that wraps it up.
I think if any of you have anecdotes or stories you'd like to
Questions.
tell or questions, hit us up on Facebook or Instagram, comment on our videos and stuff. Let us know what you think.
We're here for you.
Yeah, we are.
See you next time.
See ya. Thanks for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe. We put out new episodes every other Thursday. If you liked what you heard, take a second to give us a review. Every review helps new listeners find us. If you'd like to support us, you can find us on Patreon. We have some perks for our new subscribers and plans for more as we continue and grow. If you'd like to join the conversation, find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching Mixed to Tape Podcast. If you'd like to contact us, write us at mixedtotapepodcast@gmail.com. We can't wait to hear your questions. Thanks, and we hope to see you next time.